and welcome to the Changemakers podcast, where we chat with interesting and engaging individuals here and far about change, making change, living change in their own lives, how they've experienced unimaginable change, and innovative ways people uplift the lives of others. We chat about triumphs over tragedies, mindset matters, and how we live out our life's purpose inspirationally. So please join us to be inspired and empowered to be the change you want to see in this world. You know, we can all be change makers in our lives. Here's to the change you're about to bring forth. Welcome everyone to another episode of Changemakers. I'm Kimberly Rice, Chief Changemaker of Changemakers, where we create bold lives and careers, helping women professionals create the career of their dreams by charting their own course. I could not be more excited than to welcome my pal, Jolene Damian, today for another episode of Changemakers. And I'm going to let Jolene share with us a little bit about herself, but she is a hot, busy, path-making woman, entrepreneur, podcast host, so many things. I don't want anyone to define her, but please help me welcome Jolene to our podcast today.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. I appreciate you having me on Changemakers and introducing me. I don't think I've ever been introduced as hot.
Hot because there's a lot of movement, right? You're in constant movement.
Oh man, I have to be. I got that ADHD. It's the good stuff, though.
Yeah. So let's just jump right in, Jolene, and would you please share with our listeners a bit about yourself and a few insights into your professional journey?
Absolutely, sure. So I work with a women-owned technology company called Dirad Technologies. I work in marketing the technology itself, and it's been around for about 36 years. We specialize in cloud telephony, mass notification platforms, AI-based chatbots, some really cool stuff like that, as well as contact center technology. And we have an outsourced call center. I love the culture there. I've been there for the last year and really loving it. I also hostess a podcast called Friday's Flavor. I've always been an entrepreneur since forever. I started my first profitable business at 11 years old, and I've worked ever since. And I enjoy having, very candid conversations with business owners about how they got there, what their challenges have been, what they, enjoyed about their journey so far, and where they see the future of their business. And I always ask everybody I sit with, what's your number one tip for a hopeful entrepreneur out there listening? And I hope it enriches the community. And I focus on New York. I happen to very much admire the New York business community as a whole. I think we are very united. I think I mean, maybe I'm a little prejudiced. I also think it's, as wonderful as it is, a very difficult demographic, and also we're one of the most regulated places in the world. So it can be very, I don't want to say difficult, but it can be challenging at times to be a business owner in New York. So I wanted to find a way that I could, help that community that I've always held near and dear. And I was like, well, damn, the only marketable skills I've got are my big mouth. So we're just going to have to start a podcast and we'll start talking to people. And, that's kind of how I ended up doing that. I have a background in marketing and sales, and also the hospitality industry. My main roots actually were in bartending, waitressing. I did that for many years and really, really enjoyed it. So, I've got a very interesting, unique sort of take on sales and marketing, because I've always looked at it from a service standpoint, being that I started in hospitality. But yeah, that's as much as you need to know. Fun fact, I speak Spanish and love to, reach that community as well. I'm actually going to start doing one podcast a month in Spanish, and have Spanish speaking guests. And there's tons of amazing, Latin and Hispanic owned businesses in New York. I mean, so many, so many. So I'm super excited to start highlighting those individuals. And then next year in 2021, I'm really hoping to do a tech podcast in partnership with Dirad. So we're starting to chit chat about that. And so yeah, I do have a lot going on, but I'm blessed. Busy is a blessing, as you know. It's a blessing, and sometimes it's a curse because you try to keep up with yourself, your life, your business. But yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, it just it makes me tired listening to it, or actually energized, because I can. It's very clear that you have a lot of passion and energy towards all the things that you're involved with, and I would imagine there are some intersections among all of some of those things, at least. And so,
Oh yeah.
I'm curious how your journey in helping others in on all these different platforms has impacted you and your life.
Are you kidding me? So like I've had the opportunity to talk to movers and shakers. And you've probably heard this before, but like you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I mean, I think you've heard that before, right? But I'll say it
Sure.
again. You are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so I feel very blessed that I get to spend time with a lot of really, innovative, hardworking, dedicated, uplifting. I mean, I could use every word in the book to describe the different types of guests I've had the opportunity to have on. Um, y- y- you know, and we've had amazing conversations, and everybody's unique and comes from a different background, but there's a lot of commonalities across industries that you'll see kind of shine through, which that's always fun, to sort of see light bulbs go off too, when you get to bring a little bit of that from one person's experience and give it to somebody else who, you haven't necessarily had the direct experience, but you've spoken to a person who does this. And, I find it in that way, it's not only a really great, way to develop change and growth in others, but in myself.
Yes, well, oftentimes the best growth opportunity is the mirror, and how people reflect back to us what we need to see in ourselves.
Yeah. And talk about getting to learn from the best. You know what I mean? Like I get to hear everybody's number one tip first.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So
Yeah.
one of the things that deeply impacted me to launch Changemakers, which is working with women professionals under the age of 40, and its work is to educate and equip women professionals towards, building bold lives and career with the um, in the heartbreaking reality of how so many of us walk through our lives and our careers. I mean, there's so many women who do that.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious if you can share how your program, your podcast, and those that you reach can be transformative as far as helping others move towards a healthy life and career.
I think it's good to see and hear a variety of perspectives. And I hope that's what we get to see, shine through. So somebody listening can go, I've heard from people from all walks of life, but they're all making it, work here in New York. So I can too. So I hope that shines through in the program.
Yeah, that sounds phenomenal. One of the things that I found, I'd love to talk with you and kind of pick your brain a little bit about mindset.
Oh.
What does it mean to you, and how critical is it for fulfilling and prosperous life and career? I'm sure you have a lot to say about that, given the fact that you have such a wide reach.
Not even just that, but I can just speak from experience that I've had a crappy mindset and I've had a really great one, thanks to that experience. Because I think we all go through seasons in our life, and I don't know any woman, especially out there, who can't go from time to time. I just don't even feel myself. So I think coming from a place of experience and knowing that there's highs and lows. I mean, yeah, just to expound sort of a little bit more on your question, could you repeat it again? There was something you said that made me think of something.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to. As far as we know that there are two different mindsets. This is science speaking. There's a growth mindset and there's a fixed mindset. Our growth mindset informs us that while we may not know something, whatever that is, we can certainly learn it, resource it, and build our skill set to meet it. But what I'm curious to hear and learn from you is, what does, having a growth mindset, or your mindset in general, what's it mean to you, and how critical is it for finding and building a fulfilling and prosperous life and career?
So when I think of mindset, one of the first trigger words that comes to my mind when I hear mindset, I always think negative self-talk. And that's because I've struggled with mental illness and my whole life. I've had bipolar disorder and OCD, and treatment for that is what it is. It's not perfect. It needs adjusting often. And so I've had a very, very intimate experience with negative self-talk, and it sucks, and it makes everything else suck. It could just be to start in one area even, and just really bring your overall everything down. And then I've seen the opposite, where like when I'm really thinking about the positive results and trying to manifest that's what I'll manifest. And it's interesting in that way. Your mindset really does mark your path, and the way that you'll go, the way you'll end up eventually down the road. Because whether you believe it or not, a decision you made exactly 5 years ago today is affecting you now, and it's been your mindset to carry through on it, or not. So I think it's critical. It's absolutely critical to put yourself in the right mindset, to keep yourself in the right mindset, to take active steps like taking care of your health, noticing when you have a bad habit forming and that you need to stop, being accountable to self, and self dependent and motivating in a lot of ways. So I mean, mindset is affected by everything and affects everything.
I couldn't agree with you more. We are what we think. Over and over again, I have a library full of books from some of the greatest neuroscientists and some of the greatest spiritual teachers that, illuminate the fact that we are the combination and the product of what we think. And
So
so
true.
we have to guard. I mean, we have to, guard our minds, like the most sacred part of our bodies, because, it's like those brains up there, they're sponges. And, if we're feeding them crap, then it's going to um, produce crap. And if we
Yeah.
want to have peak performance, if we, whatever our goals may be in our lives or our careers, then we really have to guard our the information that we allow,
Yeah.
in and around the brain. So I'm curious,
Yeah.
having the unique experiences that you have, what would you suggest as a few steps that our listeners can focus on to show up more boldly, to develop a winning game plan for peak performance as it relates to
Sure.
mindset?
So mindset, it's kind of like I'll give an example here. That I've heard from my pastor actually, and the way he says it is way funnier than me. Don't ask, but he said, you can let a bird land on your head, or a bird may land on your head, but only you allow it to make a nest.
Mm,
So it's important to start recognizing that mindset talk, the negative self-talk or the positive self-talk, and taking care of it, as necessary. Right then and there. Don't wait, and like, and something that I learned in therapy, group therapy, and even from life coaches, is that you have to redirect that thought as soon as you have it. As soon as something negative comes across your mind, you've got to say the opposite, because it's just a lie, and it tries to gain momentum and truth by having you repeat it over and over again. But if you immediately say the opposite out loud, doesn't matter how silly you look, where you're at, just say it. Like if you said, wow, I really suck at that, you should go, you know what, no, I'm getting stronger at that every day. I'm getting better at that every day. You have to immediately take that negative self-talk and repeat out loud the antithesis of it until that's true. Because whatever you say, you are.
exactly. Whatever we say, we are, and what we think about expands. And I don't know. Have you ever met, or not met, but are you aware of Esther and Abraham Hicks?
Why does that sound so familiar?
Oh my God, it's a collective wisdom that teaches, basically full self-actualization and creating our own reality with our thoughts. That which
Oh,
we think we expand.
it's true.
And I can't.
And that's biblical too. I mean, when you talk about spirituality, everything you said, I was like, that's biblical. That's biblical. It's true. God said, whatever is lovely, think upon that. Whatever is sweet, whatever is beautiful, whatever is lovely to behold, focus on that. Think on those things.
Right.
I think that's Philippians. I'll watch all the Jesus freaks gonna come out and correct me. It's okay.
Well, one of the things that I love about Esther and Abraham Hicks is I have found as a young woman that was raised in the South and knows her Bible verses, that so many of the spiritual teachers that we would recognize today, essentially takes the Holy Bible scriptures and puts them on steroids for a greater, wider, broader, deeper life application. And so if there's those among us who don't believe in God or Allah or, whatever entity, the great creator, the source, the energy source of all that is, whatever one wants to label it, that there is a source and an energy greater than ourselves, that they're the principles of all these different teachings, whether it's, the Torah or the Quran or the Holy Bible or other religious books. They have so many different intersections of some of the same teachings, and I find that very uplifting. But
Yeah, it's interesting when you consider all of them tout morality. Eventually, I mean, when it boils down to it, they're touting their definition and prescription for morality, and I think that's what ultimately the theme behind theology is the struggle between evil and good. And morality suggests that there's a limit to what we are allowed to do, what our free will even allows us to, that we all have a standard across the board. And it's sad that in some religions, I mean, there is mention of, mistreatment that's occurred in the past and or mistreatment of certain groups in multiple religions, but they all do bear that theme of a general idea of morality, whether you agree with their prescription for that morality or not, how you subscribe to life based off of that moral compass and belief.
I love that. I love that. So here's one of my favorite questions for our guests. It's kind of a gimme. But if you could give your younger self one piece of professional advice, what would that be?
Oh gosh. I have some funny ones that I would say. Probably wouldn't believe myself though, so I better change them. I would probably say, give more than you get. Give more than you get. I've always given 100% when it came to my career, working, owning a business, whatever it was. I've always given 100%, so I don't need to hear that. I already did that. I need to hear that it's okay to mess up every once in a while and give more than you get.
That's a good one. It's interesting. I was just replaying a piece of a tape from a program I attended earlier this year about, and part of the speaker was speaking about failure and mistakes, and how particularly Western civilizations, societies view, perceive, and kind of process failure and mistakes. And the speaker said, there really is no such thing as failure or mistakes. It's just life moving you in a different direction. And that really spoke to me. And I think there's so much that we can learn, particularly, as a younger person who's, on a path to greater enlightenment. Understanding that you need to bring your best failures and what you perceive as your best failures home every day, because that's where the greatest lessons are.
Yeah, I love that. That's really great.
So, well, this is fantastic, Jolene. This has been so much fun, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to share with us anything additional that you'd like to that you'd like to offer to our readers, that kind of fits in with your, philosophy, your called change making in your space?
Take care of your community. You have to. You just have to.
Yeah. And what does that mean to you?
Give back in some way, serve in some way to, your community. Just give back somehow, and it kind of I suppose it lends itself to give more than you get, but when you're taking care of your community will take care of you back. And that's ultimately what matters.
Right. Exactly.
And your business will thrive when your community thrives.
Right, right. I love that. I love that. So, I certainly want to give our listeners an opportunity to connect with you directly. There's so
Sure.
many things that you have, your Friday Flavors podcast, your marketing tech skill set, and services that you and your firm provide. And so, what is the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
Sure. You could check out fridaysflavor.com. My email address is fridaysflavor@gmail.com. I think that's pretty easy to remember. And I can always be reached at 518-986-6266 if anybody wants to have a conversation about mindset in business in New York.
Oh, wow. That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, thank you so much, Jolene. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you, listeners, our Changemaker loyalists. And so this will be concluding our episode for today, and we look forward to hearing and seeing from you. Please leave comments in the post below of how we can support you. And until next time, what I always say is be the change you want to see in the world today. Thank you.
Many blessings. Take care, everybody.